It is happening. Italy now fears that ISIS will invade from Libya. Earlier this week, I talked about the incident in which Egypt bombed ISIS after the recent beheadings of Egyptian Christians. And in that segment, we mentioned that Italy, which is just across the Mediterranean Sea from Libya, said, we're prepared to get involved here in terms of action in Libya. And this is becoming closer and closer to a reality because now that ISIS has made inroads in Libya, Roman officials are panicking about an Islamic State that is very, very close and increasingly aggressive and belligerent. And they're not exactly sure how they would combat this crisis. And last weekend in Italy, the nation signed with the blood of the cross and the warning, "We are south of Rome." Was the message from ISIS. And Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi shuttered the Italian embassy in Tripoli and made some kind of a statement that they would be prepared to take on this threat. The only problem, pragmatically, is that Italy has only about 5,000 available troops that would even come close to what we would describe as deployable, according to records from the Defense Ministry. But Italy is part of NATO, one of the founding members of NATO, actually. So potentially, Lewis, could NATO and NATO countries be there for Italy if and when Italy decides they need to take on the ISIS threat militarily?
Yes, but my guess would be only if ISIS is approaching Italian or European soil. I don't think that if Italy wanted to preemptively strike, that it would be a NATO operation, but maybe I'm wrong.
So that you're basically spot on in terms of what I've found out, which is that it is safe to assume that Italy would have NATO support in terms of defense, but only if their defensive involvement becomes necessary. And while here in the US, we seem to be pretty fast and loose with the definition of a reactive war, Iraq was supposedly a reactive war, although we now know that it was, of course, a war completely of choice. I think that they may be a little more strict with the definition of a defensive necessity with regard to ISIS in Italy.
Yeah, probably. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, considering what's happened over the past 15 years.
I spoke to some of my friends in Italy yesterday, and they said this is the first time in their lives that they remember palpable anxiety of any significant level over possible military action that would directly impact their country. And the government said they're prepared to deploy 500 special anti-terrorism police to protect tourist sites in Rome. I think it's safe to say that if any of the 500 anti-terrorism police are shown to be necessary, that would probably constitute a defensive necessity in terms of NATO getting involved.
Yeah, I don't really know if there have been any of these France-type attacks or situations or prevented attacks in Italy recently, but if that comes up, if the need for these police is there, that's an unfortunate thing.
There is another way in which Italy is tied to Libya, which is that when they were alive and in power, respectively, Muammar Gaddafi and Silvio Berlusconi worked together on this really big, I think it was over $1 billion oil and infrastructure investment that Italy made in Libya. And even now, even with that still in place, Italy's foreign minister has ordered all Italian nationals to leave Libya. About 100 are staying because they're needed to run this oil project that they have. Unknown to most people, Lewis. It was even unknown to me until a couple of weeks ago when we started talking about some of the countries that are kind of next in this concentric circle, that Italy had this business agreement with Libya.
Yeah, news to me. I would have just assumed that there was no connection between Italy and Libya in any way, but I guess not.